Scooby, Scooby-Doo, where are you? Oh, we're waiting for it. Yes, in fact, just a quick update as we drop back into the steam tunnels. Yet another assault on our American status, our American values. Scooby-Doo has officially announced it and made it real that Velma is, in fact, a part of the LGBTQ community. And in other news, the sky is blue, water's wet, and I partake of weed now and again. So just so we can get all that out of the way, and it's just another affront to our reality as we know it. Yeah, just one of those things that we have to quote unquote explain to our kids. Okay. By the way, as a parent, I just want to say you have two jobs. I want to say this really straight and upfront. One, keep them alive. Very, very important. That includes clothing, feeding. And the second is to explain things to your kids. So if you are telling me you don't know how to explain things to your kids, I don't know what to tell you. That's the only two jobs you got. So, don't complain to me. That's just the way the world works. But we are back here. It is spooktacular, spooktaculous. Any other spooky metaphors I can get in there? Spooky.
You probably don't want to.
I mean, I do want to.
I'm trying to help you out. You got a short runway before that plane's going right up.
It's like the runway at Logan when you come in there, and it's just all water, and you hit the runway. That's it. But all right, whether or not it is, but we're still here. We're in October, and we are welcoming back our favorite guest by far. Sorry, Mike. Our favorite guest by far, Miss Amelia Schwartzman.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, we love having you back. We love having you back for Spooky Month because you love horror as much as we do. So it just absolutely makes us so happy to have you in the house. And as we were talking about just before we got started here, that you are part of our origin story because you were the one I came to and said, okay, how do we do this whole podcasting thing? And you the reason for all the mics we're using and even the format we're doing and everything. So
you always say this. I feel like you give me too much credit for that. I gave you like 2 or 3 little pointers and you guys have turned it into something so fun and so great.
Well, we enjoy it.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Right. You did the whole, it's interesting because Rashawn and I went last night to see Mr. Dan Cummins. So shout out to him. Shout out to Time Sucks, Scared to Death, his podcast. But that's what kind of inspired me to do all this stuff and then bring all you fine people in with it.
Shout out to the opener.
Amelia. What's up, Rashawn?
Shout out to the opener.
Absolutely. Oh yes, I'm gonna go. I gotta remember who that was. Oh my gosh, she was really good though. She was funny.
Mary something.
Yes, I feel bad.
We are
she was really
great.
good. She was very funny.
We are really honoring her.
Right we are really doing a great job. She did a great job. I'll double check and see. Go back to the marquee later on. See.
Yeah, I probably could have just kept my
we're
mouth
knocking
quiet.
this out of the park without a doubt. Helping young stand-up comics get their next booking in. But no, seriously, Amelia, without you, I don't know if this would all come together because you were like, you could totally do this. You gave me you give us all that last mile of confidence to get us in there.
Well, I'm flattered and I'm so glad that you guys took it and you ran with it. And you guys have been doing this over a year now. I mean, that's fantastic.
We have, and we're very grateful for it. Keeps us together, keeps us hanging out and doing all that. I know you're on hiatus right now from ghost hunting. And actually, this woman is so committed to her spookiness. So absolutely into the October spirit. She's got a baby coming due on Halloween. Okay. Now that's next level stuff. People.
That is wild. Yeah. My firstborn baby's due date is Halloween. No one believes me when I tell them. Everyone thinks I planned it this way. astrology lovers in the audience will know, as a Leo woman, I would never plan for a Scorpio sun, but we were trying for a while. And when we found out the due date, I was upstairs, my husband was downstairs, and I screamed, and he came running. He thought I had like fallen or something. I'm like, it's Halloween. He's coming on Halloween. Just like couldn't even believe it. So I always say it's like the universe giving us a high five and a little wink. So it was really, really fun, and we're really excited. And let's just hope I don't go into labor while we're recording tonight, because the last 2 times I've recorded with you guys, the first time my power went out, the second time the power went out right before. Today is a beautiful day. It's gorgeous here in Massachusetts. So let's hope we don't get any other surprises.
All right. I'll give you that. I've definitely got my fingers crossed for you. If Amelia does suddenly drop out, well, we'll have a reason why. And I just want to say, I thought I had the commitment down with my spider web and the giant spider and all the inflatables. I just ordered another inflatable for the lawn. Yeah, the costumes are already bought. I thought I had that commitment down, but no, you got me beat. Like, 18 ways to Sunday. All right. Well, with that, I just want to, bring us back around to our crew. I want to give a quick little shout out here to my man, Rashawn Smith, the 3 Clubs, who was out. We had a mandate last night. So,
yeah, we did. You look so handsome.
Absolutely, man. He bought me a drink. He was a gentleman. I'm saying this man is a gentleman.
I wasn't planning on being a gentleman. That's where that drink was going, baby.
I accidentally ordered a non-alcoholic drink too, by the way.
I know.
I've reached the age where I can fuck up my drink order.
You caught me. You're like, yeah, just give me the one that has 0 alcohol. This one's looking at me funny.
That's it. But thankfully, all that. How you doing today, man?
Doing well. How do you do? What do you do? And I will start by saying, at slow speed, we all seem focused. That was brought to you by the great prophet Dryden Mitchell of the Alien Ant Farm variety. And I think it's very apropos to the subject in which we are talking about, considering we are about to dive into some movies. And these guys represented the quote unquote new metal movement, which was basically going to be, to my point, the same shit, just a different year. That's all.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. Just want to get say shout out that all of us seem to somehow have avoided Woodstock 99. Amelia, did you go to Woodstock 99?
She would have been 12.
I was in 2nd grade at Woodstock 99.
I didn't want to say it, but
oh, Josh,
no, I think I was in 5th grade. Yeah.
We were trying so hard. To absolutely.
Right. The sad truth was they definitely interviewed someone who was only 3 years older than you.
Fair enough.
This girl that was 15.
Well, I'm getting older, so forgive my forgetting where your actual age there for a moment. But all of us managed
perfectly fine.
Somehow avoid Woodstock 99, though probably I could have been talked into it, but I was like, man. But I still regret not seeing Korn play. That set after watching that documentary. I'm like, okay, I would have if I gotten in there for Korn and gotten the hell out, I would have lived a happy life. That would have been okay. That would have been all right. Could have said I was there. Could have said I would.
Ironically, that's what Korn did.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. Hell, even Red Hot Chili Peppers got out of there at the end. They knew this is out. We're gone.
They're like, leave the clothes. We're out of here.
Yep. Flea was way ahead of that.
All right,
hell,
get the
even
socks.
Jewel.
We're gonna
even
need the
Jewel
socks.
managed to make it the hell out of it.
I know I'm kind of alone on this camp, but yeah, man, if you went to anything with Lip Biscuit, you have it coming.
I don't think you're alone on that.
You've turned your back on God.
I mean,
and in this forsaken land, yeah, this is what happens.
Also, ironically, I think Fred Durst would agree.
Yeah, to be quite honest with you. But what did you expect? Like, I remember seeing the concert promoter saying Fred Durst was a total asshole. I'm like, who did you think you were hiring? What are you talking about? But you heard from him. He's chimed in there. The man, the myth, the legend, the star child, Gregory Descents. How you doing tonight?
I'm feeling all right. Ready to have a good time with Amelia. What's up, Amelia? How you doing? And
Hey.
yeah, ready to keep our own mandate together.
Absolutely. Hey, I invited you to the mandate. You were like, nah, dog.
I
you
have
totally...
bad luck with stand-up comedians. It usually ends up in a scene.
Okay, fair enough.
It happens every time, so I just stay away from it.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that you played Randy in the trio of judges there, and you went, that's enough for me, dog.
Yeah, I was just done, man. I don't know why. Something always happens.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So I just stay away from it.
Are you the one?
You don't have to heckle the comedian. You know,
That's
you can let them get
Rashawn and I went the
routine.
same place. We're like, why are you doing yelling at the comedian? What's going on?
It wasn't me, man. It wasn't me. It wasn't
right.
me. I swear to God, it wasn't me.
Greg's alter ego.
Right?
Gary.
It wasn't me.
Gary.
I'm just over here trying to negotiate this Guinness on a full stomach. That's it. My only challenge.
Gary has car bombs.
Oh man, Irish car bombs. Those were the best back in the days. Guinness and a little bit of Bailey's, man. That stuff went down smooth. And the after effect, well, that was another matter. But all right, we are here. We are here specifically because it is Murder Month, I believe. Greg, you dubbed it that, Murder Month?
I believe it's going to be Murder Month.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Each year we got to, evolve, but, Murder Month. But we are here to discuss our absolute, favorite subject, really, when it comes down to it. And everyone's favorite excuse to watch their horror movies, to put up their decorations, to get their costumes. Yeah, I'm looking at me right now. I'm pushing 50. And yes, I got a costume ready to go. That's happening. Turned out I was already in simpatico with the work costumes, and we all had our Nintendo costumes in the Fink household, and that's what they voted at for the work site.
Nice.
So we're absolutely nailing it this year. But as we move on through in this little bonus episode here for October, I wanted to discuss new horror. So no, not the Limp Bizkit of horror, but the idea of how horror has evolved and how we watch it. Some of the films that we take on and some of the ways it presents it. A lot of this, I'm looking at you, Blumhouse. I'm looking at you, A24. Some of the newer forms that you're presenting to us, giving us some of the tropes. We know, a little bit of slasher, a little bit of possession, a little bit of stalker, whatever we got going on, but giving it that little bit of twist, especially in the realm of the psychological. Is it real? Is it supernatural? Is it both? Have we combined it? Is it all in the mind of the viewer?
Psychological.
Psychological. I think that's what has kept me interested in the genre, frankly, because I've watched a lot, as all of us have here, right? We are, three of us were in the VHS generation. One of us was in the DVD generation. So, okay, we were able to rewatch these movies at any time that we wanted, and we watched them a lot. I really wanted to open the show, honestly, with the rap from Will Smith and of Nightmare on My Street, but I couldn't remember it. Come on, I mean, how did I forget that?
Oh, Google! Google banned you from searching again. That's a rough life, man. That is. Hey, Yahoo works too.
I mean,
and I've heard rumors that Bing might get you close.
All I'm saying is
Bing.
You guys have both agreed to come over and clear my search history, but that one you might leave it there. I'm sorry. Like that might be the one thing.
Use a separate browser, cowboy.
That's all. The only thing you're gonna leave in my search. Why was he Googling the lyrics to Nightmare on My Street? All right. Well, we got a full stack show here. We got all of us, so we'll take a little 5-minute here, a little 5-minute hiatus, as such, a 5-minute chunk of time. I totally misused that word. I mean, I just was reaching for a word. I reached back and totally reached into the word bank and completely came up with the wrong word.
Did you really want to say 5 minutes? Because you're just stuck on the phrase 5 minutes. No matter what, you're going to say 5 minutes.
Try to shine that up, make it sound shiny, a little different from how we're usually doing it, because we got we have a quartet here and our esteemed lady in residence. So I'm reaching back into that word bank and completely drawing out the wrong words. It's Friday night. back home from a successful outing of coaching. Thank you very much. Watching my son get his goal. Yeah, all right. Goal, little Will Smith. But I'm going to turn the mic over to the man that you're hearing right now for his little time and his little walk around in our jaunt through new horror. It is Starchild Greg DeSense. Take it away.
Yes, I like this topic too. I was a little bit disappointed that we weren't going to go ahead with Scooby-Doo, because we can shit talk Scooby-Doo all day and never get bored.
October is 31 days long, my friend.
We got some more episodes to go, so we can texturization this. This can happen.
I did not hate that idea. I'm just saying. I wasn't against it.
All right.
But you go right ahead, Velma. Live your truth. To any guy who is actually attracted to her, this won't make a difference. So, I barely see how this is news. Yeah, they don't care. They don't care.
Not even a little bit.
No, not even a little bit.
Nah.
So when you pointed this out, I was like, yeah, why not? This is a little window of time where you could be a simultaneous artsy film snob. That guy who only rented his DVDs from the library because, the video store never has the things that he wants. A lot of it's on back order, so you're going to have to wait for that, and still like mainstream horror films. Like this is probably the glory days, okay, where you could really love Buckets of Blood and Tarkovsky. Oh my God, Tarkovsky. But that's exactly it. I don't know it. Yeah, it's partially the atmosphere. Yes, it's the chances that, I don't know if they take so much chances, but they definitely change the formula a lot. And I think they borrowed a bit from superhero films because, you need some better actors and some top-notch special effects. And then you can really sell this shit as whatever you want. Because, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, they're kind of in that little group together because, they need so much in special effects. Like without even trying, with every movie, you're going to want to take it a step up. And so you're probably going to be accidentally groundbreaking because you need to invent a thing that makes it look like this, I don't know, doll is chasing people down the street with a butcher knife. Like you have to come up with that technology. So you end up being groundbreaking. And I think they finally took it to that level of artistry. Why not? I will say that the biggest difference between A24 and Blumhouse for me, I feel like A24 definitely has a style. Like they have much more of a style that you can see through, I want to say, just about all of their movies. Is The Witch exactly like Lighthouse? No, but as far as atmosphere, as far as what they were doing visually and how they left the ending and how they built up the characters, yeah, I'd say you could definitely put those two together. But with Blumhouse, Halloween, Get Out, yeah, like that's a little bit like, right? I feel like their collection's definitely everywhere. And I think they did Split, right? Weren't they the ones that did they do Split?
I believe so. I'll double check. I gotta double check it on the old Google here. And yeah,
right, exactly. I feel like them and The Invisible Man. I feel like they definitely take a lot more chances and go in a lot different directions. On a different note, I did love the movie Upgrade. If you didn't see Upgrade, that's a superhero movie. It really is. Like, check out Upgrade if you have the chance. I'm pretty sure it's a Blumhouse movie. But I think those two things, like for me, doesn't make it seem like, all right, we're just being overrun with the new cliches, now just because it's paced differently and it's a little bit slower. And I don't know, the college kids running around that are going to die are a little less attractive, but much better actors. I could live with that. Honestly, I could live with that. I think that is something where you can say, okay, where this isn't just the dumb slash, because this generation needed to define itself, as far as horror goes, because in the 70s, 80s, a lot of it was silly. Let's be honest. A lot of it was pretty silly because, if you don't know how to end your zombie film, have the main character strap a lawnmower to his chest. as you do.
As you do.
As you do. And then you kind of went through that, horror porn era, you know what I mean? The Hostel movies and I mean, yeah, the Halloween remake definitely. And yeah, I would probably say, most of what was coming out then, it was just like kind of stark violence, unless it was Robert Rodriguez doing something fun for the hell of it. But I think this generation of horror is going to have to make this kind of their new direction, because not only, I mean, you can win awards and it's not necessarily more expensive. I mean, the price point of horror is always good for business. I mean, there's a reason why these two companies, decided to make that part of their, avant-garde, because it's not that expensive. You take a bunch of old people, you put them out in the field, you come up with some story about a cult, and ladies and gentlemen, you have Midsummer. These movies get criticized, though, probably more A24 than Blumhouse, just because it's like, okay, just because it's a little slower doesn't mean you develop these characters any better. I mean, come on. The pacing, the pacing is a little bit, slower. They try to make it seem like a little bit of an independent film, and the main character has kind of become, a badass. Like a lot of people think, but I think it's mostly that image. Her with the flowers, like, there's something kind of bizarre and whimsical.
But you thought she
it.
became a badass? She was more just a circumstantial character.
Yeah. I guess now people are kind of feeling like, you got to look up to her. I said, don't entirely know why. Like she is just
for that character.
She's a much more emotional survivor girl. Like, really, I mean, she's the survivor girl, right?
Yeah, everyone else did things.
Yeah, exactly. But
they did Black Kid wrong. I'm just saying. Wrong.
If I'm gonna say I have a favorite movie of each, as a New Englander, I love The Witch from A24. If
Fantastic film, I really
right. I loved it. You definitely don't see the ending coming, which is, again, part of their thing. Like it's really difficult, close to impossible, to predict a lot of their endings, and they have no problem leaving it, ambiguous. Like right. you decide for yourself what was real, what was just in the characters' minds, what was really happening. And I think that's what you touched on, because they don't mind being taken for enhanced thrillers. Like they have no problem with it. From Blumhouse, I'm gonna go ahead and say you gotta see, other than Upgrade, see Get Out. Get Out made them.
Yes,
I think that's fair. Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Made them. Yeah,
I think it's I think that's fair to say how much Peele like put them over the top, right? And
absolutely,
that established him as a horror director. Mm-hmm. And just put that whole studio to the fore.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, yeah, I used to rent movies from the library. That's why I know.
As I think all of us did. Yeah, I'm about to say, I think anyone on this panel sitting here, Amelia, was that you ever do the library thing, or what was the was it all Netflix by the time by mail? You remember Netflix by mail? Don't deny it.
I remember Netflix by mail. I wasn't participating in it though, because I was in college then. But pretty much by the time I was doing movies, all my cousins still had VHSs, so we'd watch those. But then the illegal downloading of the movie was really big when I kind of that.
Shout out to LimeWire.
Yeah.
All right, but no, I'm just gonna throw on the legal allegedly for Amelia's sake. My mom, I'm protective of her. She's running her creperie over in Wellesley there. So let's keep all this legal. Okay. Keep all this above board.
You have to point out where you can go get her.
Yeah. Tell everyone exactly where I am as you say it.
But just in case you do find anything, this is where she is.
This is where the editing comes in.
Absolutely.
Damn, Josh.
I did want to say that you really put a fine point on a couple of things, that we talked about. Something that I left out in that initial intro was the slow burn. And I think that is so critical to a lot of these things. And it brings out, like you say, it brings out the criticism. It happens to be what I like in that idea of it is like this slow moving, bit by bit. It never entirely lets go, in the, as you said, like the silliness that we grew up in the 80s, right? When I go back and I watch, the Friday the 13th, even the Halloween, right? What do? They have these, they build a little tension, and then they have some ridiculous moment, with a kid knocking, getting the pumpkin knocked out of his hand, or the cat, running down
or Pumpkinhead, the movie.
Yeah, right. You have all that
Lance
of just
Hendrickson
silliness that finally builds. Yes, it finally builds to, the whatever's going to happen, and then it doesn't let go. But there is something very interesting about the way and that style of filmmaking where it's just a constant tension, right? And never quite lets go. And it doesn't quite give you the jump scare, but it's there all the time nonetheless. But
there's a lot to be said for, pit of your stomach horror. Like I think, instead of, making people jump, they like to just grab a hold of your lower intestine. And I think, that's a thing too. Basically you just want to make sure that you're having the reaction you have. And when you drag it out this much, like when you actually mess with the pacing of a film that much, you have to have control over what reactions you want your audience to have. And they nail that. They nail that. Yeah.
You guys crack me up for real. I guess it takes a guy who actually went to a business school to constantly have to point this out. And Greg, you kind of spoke on both sides of the coin, in the sense of you started your thing by saying some of these movies need to have bigger special effects, more gore, or not gore, but special effects, more whatever the effects may be in the examples you're using. And I understand that. But then we turn around and say, well, these movies are relatively inexpensive. That's the point. Like we're skipping over the lead. We're burying the lead. The plot, the pace, most of the time, the effects, all of it comes down to the budget. It comes down to how much money these guys are actually. If you want better actors, sure, but you're going to have to probably burn the budget on one guy, and then that's it. You don't have any other special effects budget. You don't have anything like that, because on top of that, producers also have to be up against the unfortunate ratio or equation of if this movie is going to make money. That's what it's going to come down to. Unfortunately, with that, they're not up against hurdles of like profit stereotypes. They're up against high jumps when it comes to profit stereotypes. There have been so many bad horror movies when it comes to profit that have come out in the last, movie industry history, that every single producer or movie studio is always going to have to look at it and be like, are we actually going to make money of it? And if you're going to point out the camp of the late 70s and 80s, I would point out they just figured out the profit margin in which they're going to make money by producing material that they literally had zero, they didn't need zero return on, because their break even was so low.
Well, as Greg well pointed out there are those who criticize these things. There are those who criticize these movies. And that brings us, in fact, to our own Three of Clubs, who is, always ready to skate onto the ice. I know you've never played a day of hockey in your life, but still, I love seeing you as a hockey goon. I love seeing you as two things, Mario or the hockey goon. I have no idea why, but in my head, that is the headspace you occupy.
I would definitely be. Well, I definitely would be the Happy Gilmore of the hockey goons, in which I would probably only have one thing figured out in hockey, and that would be like sort of how to play it, but not how to skate. So right. That would probably be where I would land. It kind of kills me how we're talking about these new horror movies, the quote unquote new horror, if we even want to call it that, in the sense of, I mean, dear Lord, by the patron saint of Patrick Swayze, Donnie Darko is sitting right there. I mean, last episode, we even talked about Psycho in the sense of all the violence is technically off screen. So many of these horror movies, whether they're up against budget constraints or if it's the actual plot, move in these directions of trying to have your imagination fill in the gap, no different than a book would. If anything, they're kind of using the same principle in the sense that, one, they know they don't have the budget for the special effects, or two, maybe they have the budget, but they'll blow it all on one person to actually pull it off in the material, so that kind of screws up the rest of the movie. or 3, they write around it. They don't necessarily need the budget. And there's so many of these psychological horror movies that kind of kicks into. It feeds into the actual idea of the genre of the movie. You don't need to have the big scary Cloverfield monster coming out of left field and knocking down buildings to make your point. You also don't need to have some indestructible 6'7" guy who looks like he was a reject from WWE walking around with a mask and a machete, just walking around killing things left and right. If anything, what these movies are proving that one genre, horror, has a lot of room to expand. You do not have to follow the same sort of path every single time. Whether it was tread before or it's new, you have so many different options when it comes to horror. And when you go to the psychological way, then you have even more, because really what you're doing is you're playing with people's experiences, you're playing with people's point of view, you're playing with people's understanding of comprehension and retention. You're playing with so many different things if you're doing it right. Because the funny thing is, 3 of us of the 4 on this panel of this Black Eyed Peas version of TSG, shout out to Amelia. God, I love when she's on the show. Our game just goes up one way or the other. But
you just Fergied that girl.
There is that.
Pretty sure Fergie came out on top.
We're gonna have to check in how Amelia feels about that.
Fergie came out on top. Y'all need to check the bank.
There's that.
Fergie made what the rest of the 3 did. So let's be clear about who was successful and who wasn't.
Will I'm not.
Yeah. Will I won't. Will I can't. That damn it. Now I'm stuck on will things. But anyway, 3 of us of the 4 watched this movie, The Night House. And look, I'm not going to say that it was a great movie. I'm not going to say it was a bad movie. I'm actually a fan of Rebecca Hall. And if anything, I think that despite the fact that her character sucked in the town, she carried it because she was that good of an actor. Her character sucked, but her acting skills were great. In The Night House, she was like way over the top trying to make the point in the beginning right away that like, hey, she could be fabricating some of these things. Now, I can go into the full plot of the movie and the fact that if it comes down to people saying, well, was it all in her head or was it all psychological? Then I think it moves into another problem these movies start to have and what we start to forgive to make these movies work. In which, in this case, in the movie The Night House, if in fact it was all in her head, then we're actually removing actual things in the plot that the viewer has to see and has no chance of seeing anything different. That's not clever. That is literally just getting to the end of a story and just changing it just because you want to change it. You didn't write anything that was psychologically thrilling or captivating or intriguing. You didn't do anything to scare anyone because what you ended up saying at the end was what was all made up in the beginning. That's different than movies like, say, Shutter Island, where you legitimately have a question of, was in fact Leo DiCaprio's character going through everything that we saw, or was he in fact immediately actually one of the inmates? And if you look at the movie in a different direction, which was so perfect in how they made such a psychological horror movie like that, then in fact you do have to question some things. Greg brought out Get Out. Funny thing about Get Out, when I went to go see it in a movie theater, is in fact how people received it. So if anything, that psychological movie, once again, and I talked about this in our last episode, it plays not necessarily on what is scary and what's not, but what is your perception of what will be scary, what is not. So if we're going to call new horror that, then I would say that's already been happening. And if we want to point to film production studio houses like Blumhouse or A24, sure, they do great. But I would argue we've already been seeing these things left and right. They're just saying out loud that this is all we care about.
Well, I think you bring up many salient points there. I am later on in the show. This is an advanced preview. This is a new format here for us. And you, of course, for new horror, new format. But just because coincidence and just because where we're at, later on, I'm going to give a rebuttal to that response. So, we're going to have the point and the counterpoint where I will open up saying, Jane, you ignorant slut. As going back to old school, or Rashawn, you ignorant slut in this case.
I mean, if you want me to Chevy Chase of this situation, you go right ahead, my friend. Right ahead. That mantle is all yours.
That was Dan Aykroyd who said that. Just
I thought that was
just to be clear,
Mr.
to
Chase.
get myself on the right Caucasian side of this, different Canadian, right? Like my wife. Okay. All right. We're good. We good. We walk
Savor
it
the
along.
flavor because it won't happen again, my
Manager.
friend. Shout out
All
to Tommy
right,
Boy.
It's all good. No, it's good that way, taking it in there. But with that, I do think you bring up some valid points though. I mean, it is a question, of how much of a trope you take with you, how much you add to it, how much you create your new trope. And are you really taking it someplace new, or are you just kind of putting a slightly different note on that on that one note hit?
If I may add, I think if anything, if I can clarify my point a little bit more in the sense of, I think it's unfair for, frankly, this genre or any genre to move towards or try to hold it against what is new. A better question is, what was their execution? Was it in line with actually the plot that they put forth and sort of what they were aiming to get to at the end of the movie? One way or the other, it's probably going to be treaded ground. And if it's not, kudos, but I think still that's not what we should be looking for. What we should be looking for is, frankly, was an entertaining plot. And I think more often than not, we ask these questions post-movie to make the entertainment happen in a movie that, frankly, just wasn't good. I mean, I can point to movies that weren't even attached to any of the art houses that we're talking about, like movies like the Autopsy of Jane Doe. That movie was fucking tastic.
Okay, all right.
So fucking tastic, and it's one of those movies where, frankly, if you there's 3 different, maybe 4 different ways you can look at that movie, and each time it's gonna land. Each time the things that scare you are going to show up. They're not looking for cheap things because it was well written, well acted, well directed, well executed. We don't have to have questions, and if we do, it only adds. It doesn't supplement.
All right. Now, okay. I'm sitting back down for a second. I thought I was standing up because I thought you didn't like the Autopsy of Jane Doe, and I was like, okay, the chair's going back. That's it. Gloves going. No, misread it. My bad. Didn't mean any offense, as they say.
I love that movie. Are you kidding me?
No, great movie. Well, with that, I mean that's lead. I can see you there, Amelia. I see you ready to jump on in because I'm ready to give you.
Well, now I'm nervous because I personally did not love the Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Oh no!
I did
go for it.
Firstly, I'll sit back down in my chair.
Go get it, Amelia. Go get it.
There's nothing better. I'm going to unleash you now because the fact is that we love Rashawn and he's our 3 of clubs, but he's the one that's there to disagree with, and I'm going to disagree with him later. So don't you worry about that.
I feel like I have other uses, but you know what, Amelia? Now you are officially part of TSG because if you haven't argued with one of us, then you're really just a guest up until now. But now you're family. Now it's canon.
Now that's entirely it, and especially with Rashawn. Like Rashawn's like the
again. I have other purposes on the team.
I do agree with you on that. Absolutely. Well, Amelia, let's hear what you got. Let's hear what you were thinking about when we were on our subject to new horror.
Swing it.
So I have a lot I'm thinking about with this. So last time I was on the, not last time, 2 times ago, the first time I was on the show, you guys had me here to talk about guilty pleasure horror movies. And now we're talking about something that's so different, right? So I feel like we can't have those kind of guilty pleasure ones that we used to have back in the day because now true crime is here. So we have real slashers that are being shown all the time. Real life scary things are happening on TV constantly all the time. And I think that's a big thing we need to look at. Also, all of a sudden, if I want to watch something really horrifying, I mean, I could watch like John Wick or Batman even. I mean, when I saw Batman in theaters, I was like, oh my God, this is horrific. Like, it was just a lot of really scary things. So that's one of it. But the big thing with this new horror is how it kind of makes you think, which you guys both kind of pointed on. So one thing I want to bring up with Greg is when you were talking about Midsommar and Danny, played by Florence Pugh. So why was she such a big deal at the end? For me, I've explained this to many people. This is my theory about that movie. She started, and we talk about this idea of suicide and death and mourning, and how do we look at it? How do we here in the West, in America, kind of look at suicide, and it's this horrible thing, and it's really shamed upon. By the end of the movie, there's people choosing to die for the better of this good. And now how do we mourn as a group together? So for me, that was about this woman's journey through family and life, and how do we look at stages going on and moving. So some things kind of makes you think, a little more. Now, whether that makes her a good horror or not, I don't know. But I think, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And you have that slow burn, because with Midsommar, especially with Get Out, I remember seeing Get Out in the theater. I'm like halfway through. I'm like, I don't get why this is scary. I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden it hits you, because I saw it the first week. So we didn't know what was happening when we went to see it. And it's like, oh my God. So very, very different. How those things work. I think what you guys said about money is right. I know for me personally, I never go to movie theaters unless it's something really scary. I like to see, I like that experience in the theater. So for me, that's a big thing. And then where was I going? Oh no, my brain shut off. But I think the other big thing where sci-fi goes into it is all of a sudden you had The Matrix. The Matrix came out and everything changed. And so now we're able to bring all that stuff in. Even when you think of Cabin in the Woods, like you have this idea of your classic cabin horror movie, but now you're bringing in that sci-fi aspect with it. And halfway through, again, you're like, oh my gosh, where is this going? Like, what is happening?
Well, I think you made a excellent point going into all that. Where is this going? Where is this happening? Where does the one bleed into the other? And something I was thinking about when you were talking about Get Out, and even Cabin in the Woods to a certain extent, is how horror then starts to drift into the mainstream. As you say, we can turn on the news and see some pretty horrifying shit any given day now. We've been able to do that most of our lifetime, but seems particularly pointed right now.
Well, I don't know if you guys just finished the Dahmer series on Netflix, but
I'm working my way through it. I'm most of the way there. We even talked about it on an earlier episode that'll probably come out around the same time this one does here. So now that was Napoleon Dynamite playing Jeffrey Dahmer was my feeling on it. It's like, which I think is who he really was.
Or Evan Peters. Shout out to American Horror Story.
There was that.
I would just, I think Amelia really nailed, and we've talked about Get Out multiple times, but this further proves my point in the sense of I went to go see it the first weekend too. And what I would point out in the sense of point of view and perception and life experience playing into the psychological thriller, there were moments where myself, and I'm not going to speak for every Black person, I've made that clear. We are not a monolith. No one is. But there are moments in the beginning of that movie and early parts of the movie that I myself kind of kept it down because I believe in being quiet at the movie theater. But, there's certain verbal outbursts that kind of come out. And I and a few other people that obviously were, or not obviously, but we're Black, I could see, we're all like, oh shit. But at the same time, other people are looking around that weren't Black, like, wait, what's the problem? Wait, what happened? What's going on? Like, so that was to me the genius of that movie, in the way that it landed at the end for a lot of us in the same ways of being horrified, being frightened. That's why we came for that sort of entertainment. But the layers in which it hit, and in similar ways, I would argue, and Amelia, feel free to add on and correct me, how sometimes those movies, if it has a female point of view, where men will totally miss a lot of it, while they're shit where women are like, oh fuck, you see that shit? You see how that's coming? Oh no.
Yes, totally agree.
Well, that was something I was thinking of when you were talking about that. Get Out goes back, it goes back and forth, and it's that idea of being part of a segment of society that is being singled out either for your gender or being a minority and everything. Going back to the Stepford Wives, right? We start there, and this idea of this overall controlling, subversive and insidious force, right? Trying to just, and in the 70s, it was, well, we need to bring we need to bring women back to what our image of the 50s was, right? And then I see Get Out, and it's the same thing for Black people. It's like, no, okay, like everyone wants this idea, and we need to like get everybody back down. We need to, undermine that and kind of, take it back to this, ridiculous, idealized form that's truly horrifying, right? It's that's where the horror lies in. And I just thought it was interesting hearing you talk about it, and it made me.
I feel like
go ahead.
Sorry. I feel like the fair line of demarcation when it comes to Get Out is literally at the end, where if you see the cops coming, what your reaction really speaks to, frankly, what kind of experiences you've had. Because the first time I saw that movie, and once again, myself and a few other people in the movie, they were like, oh, well, that's it. That's the end right there. They are fucking dead. They're dead right there. This sucks. It's all over. Whereas other people were sitting there like, I guarantee you're like, all right, they're safe. So it definitely adds to a different experience how you come out of it. But if you're horrified, if you're entertained, then ultimately speaking, I think that makes for a successful movie, regardless of what you take from it.
Well, that's why I kind of threw in that term of, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but, an enhanced thriller, where it's right. I mean, you still have a certain amount of expectations, you know what I mean? Like an action movie, like if it's a slow burn all the way to one big action sequence, that action movie sucked. Like you're not going to go back.
Hey, back,
just not.
Take a step back from Endgame, okay? From Avengers Endgame. Take a step back.
Like that was just 3 hours. It felt like just watching TikTok for 3 hours. Like it was just short attention span theater for 3 hours. But like ask yourself, like, how much of a horror film is this, but how much of a horror film was Psycho? Right. I mean, if we're going to take it all the way back to the beginning, how much of a horror film was Silence of the Lambs? Where does it end up? Right. Like how much of it, so I guess you would have to play, because for me, Get Out was leaning more towards thriller.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. Well, the funny thing is, I think even if you look at classic monster horror, right? So Dracula, Werewolf, Frankenstein, I guarantee you, one, they're coming from folklore that has been around humanity probably longer than written history. And two, even to this day, there are probably people where that lands differently. Case in point, when we all talk about zombies, Greg himself has pointed out multiple times that lands differently for Haitians than it does for other people. It's so I think also that plays into general horror and how all horror has to have some level of psychological intrigue, but also if depending on how close you are or proximity to the actual real horror of the subject, then that probably also plays into whether or not you see it as pure psychological thriller or just, a slasher.
I think that's, and I that brings me to the point. You did it as you often do there, Rashawn. You set me up perfectly, just landed on in, because when we come to the film and you've touched on it, that brought me to kind of this subject was actually after seeing just after we had filmed our true crime film. Filmed, audio, taped, whatever it is, streamed our true crime episode when we had Amelia on the last time. And Amelia made a point that was so true, was that, of course, we all have this fear of the stranger. We all have this fear of the Jeffrey Dahmer and, all of the Richard Ramirez's and all the other terrible, terrible people out there that are legitimately did terrible things and were strangers to people. But I can't forget, Amelia, when you said on that last episode that we were doing together, that your husband is the most likely person to kill you in your life, and that you should, that was just such a true thing that I knew on some level, and I always acknowledged it. But hearing you say that out loud really, I was pondering that, and then I came across The Night House, which is what gave me this sort of idea on this subject. And I was, so to counter a little bit and talk to Rashawn's point, I was enthralled by The Night House because, mild spoilers here, it blended true crime and it blended horror, right? Where it was like, wow. And it seemed to take that premise that you had put out there in the ether, and obviously the film had already been made, but exactly that. Like, wait a second, right? What's really the most frightening thing here? What are really the most frightening things in our life? And it is that the people closest to us are the ones who can hurt us the most, that pose the most danger, be it physical, emotional, or spiritual, if we'll go really, really deep into that. And that was, to me, when I really saw the genre coming through and starting to blend and starting to change itself up quite a bit. Starts with The Witch. So I'm definitely giving you that, Greg, that I love that one. It did have that question. It did have this idea of what's real and what's just from being isolated and, you know, extremely religious and what's happening there. Also, the shots there are taken from old wood. Some of the shots are taken from old wood prints that I know I had seen growing up and reading books on witches and magic and all that stuff, because I was that kid in the library. I had lots of time after school. You know, I was a latchkey kid. So sometimes I went to the library and looked at the, you know, the forbidden books and all those things that the adults would rather have me not looking at.
That was adorable.
That absolutely, you know me, you know, I shoot for adorable. So, but that's, you know, it starts to cut into that genre. You mentioned Midsommar, which also then goes back to Hereditary. And we've talked about that a little bit last year. So I won't belabor the fact too much, but even in the very name there, right? It's this idea of generational trauma, mental illness, right? Like, and what passes through for any of us who've, I mean, unfortunately, I've had that case. My mom suffered from Lewy body dementia, and seeing that happen and all those things, it's very hard, right? And you would not be human if you don't say, wait, is that going to happen to me one day? And that's kind of the terror of it all, is that some form of it will, right? This is kind of idea almost of aging horror of us, really gets to the heart of any of the horror films we watch, is our own, our fear of our own imminent demise. But going back to The Night House, yeah, really just did such a good job, in my opinion, of taking that idea of like, what is really the most scary thing, right? Of not really knowing your spouse or who your spouse is or what they're truly thinking. And also, yeah, adding just that absolutely creepy and straight, and frightening aspect of true crime to it, right? Even in just the idea of people who knew the husband, I'm trying not to give away too much, but who know the husband in this film and know something isn't right, but they can't quite put their finger on it, and they can't quite bring themselves to tell his wife, which, I don't know, could have been helpful and maybe stop some things, right? But absolutely, like, that's a really hard decision to make. And I could even understand that, right? Because what am I going to say for, being a parent, being a husband? I see one of the dads or one of the moms acting kind of strange consistently week by week. If I say this is all, yeah, I'm realizing I'm getting myself in trouble. But week by week at the pickup and playground, I'm not necessarily gonna reach out and say anything about that. It's like, hell no, I don't know what's really going on. No one ever knows what's really going on. And I think that is just it. That film goes to the idea that you never really know what's going on. You can never really definitely say, someone, your partner, those things, because unfortunately we all live this life in a certain amount of solitude, right? We cannot read each other's thoughts. Thank God. It's the only reason the human race has made it this far, right? And there's always going to be some part of the other person that is not understood. And I thought that was a very daring place to take horror. I thought that was a really smart concept and something that was truly terrifying, and something that, when you stop and you think about it, all of us can absolutely relate to. So that was my 2 cents, my little rebuttal over there to Rashawn, looking at
over there.
I mean,
he's coming out of the penalty box.
This guy.
If ever there's a definition of meh. Look, the only question I guess I would have for you or anyone who loved The Night House is, and this is going to lead to the problem that I have with it, is, what do you think was real and what do you think was in her head? Or what do you think was mystical? Because that is the problem that I have with movies like The Night House, is they get lazy and then they throw these things up to give them cover instead of actually throwing down on a plot point and going with it. That is the problem. Like, you can literally go on and on about what was in her head. you can go on and on about what was mystical, because we're kind of skipping over what was talked about at the end of the movie, coming from the person that wasn't her husband that had been working with her. And I'm trying not to give away stuff too. We're also giving away the stuff that she found, which had to have been real, or maybe it wasn't real. So was it all like made up in her head from the start of the movie? Was it all made up in her head from like the beginning? I mean, the middle of the movie. You can keep doing that, but frankly, that is just lazy and bad plot writing. And that's all it is. In overacting didn't help.
You say that's where you just, everything you said that you didn't like about the film is everything I liked about the film, right? I come down to who the adult. We are the adults watching the film. We are the ones capable of making these choices. And the fun part is I can decide. It's like choose your own adventure. I can decide it was all in her head one day. I can decide it was this. I can decide it was totally supernatural the next. That's the fun part. Like I can revisit the story in my head and come to my own conclusions. Because God damn it, I'm a grown ass man. Come on, I can do these things.
This is Josh of the fourth dimension.
No, I'm just saying I can arrive at these places, and that's really the fun of it. I did want to shoot back to you, Amelia. Tell me what you didn't like about the autopsy of Jane Doe because of that, because of these same themes that we're talking about, and that we were, I'm curious how close you land to Rashawn on that one.
No, I liked it. Amelia did not.
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. No.
Okay. Yeah. So
a lot of people did like it. I understand that. I did not. I felt honestly, I felt it just hit you over the head with, I feel how Rashawn feels about this other movie you're talking about.
Fair enough.
I felt it was lazy. It's like hitting you over the head with all these different ideas. Like now we have the Salem witch trials coming in. We have this other thing coming in. All of a sudden, I don't want to give away the ending, but all of a sudden you think one thing just happened. Oh, it's something else. But it just seemed too, like when, especially at the end of the movie, when that happened, like, I don't want to give it away, but like the last thing and then the very last scene with the bell, I'm like, I like rolled my eyes. I was like, this is so whatever. Like I wasn't scared. Like there were a few points like leading up to those that I was kind of scared, but it almost felt like, I don't know. It was like one of those M. Night Shyamalan movies where you just had such like high expectations that it was going to be great. And then you're like, what was that? Like, I don't know. That's just how I personally felt about it. I was not a huge fan. I think I went into it really expecting something fantastic because, all the previews were like, oh, the scariest movie of the last 20 years and stuff. And I was like, oh, I can't wait. And then I'm like, yeah, whatever. It was fine.
All very fair points. And I guess if I had anything to give me sort of cover is I watched it relatively early in its success run. So I didn't have any of those expectations. It was just one of those random, like, oh, I know these guys, so I'll just watch this type of moment.
Oh, no, I was like waiting for it. I couldn't wait for it to come out. I was so excited. And then I was so let down.
Yeah, I get that.
The hype factor is hard. The hype factor is really hard because it can set you up for that level of disappointment, right?
Yeah.
I definitely know what you're saying there.
I talked about that with the Blair Witch Project when I finally got to go see it in the movie theater, which was towards the end of the hype. And I laughed my way through that movie. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I had ever seen up until that point.
There was the Blair Witch, Sixth Sense, like there were just a couple of horror movies that were just Hostel was another one. Like people were just, hyping it up far too much, so by the time you saw it, you were like, it was decent. M. Night Shyamalan, I'm always going to give a film creator some credit for trying something new, even if I didn't like it. I'm going to give
stick the landing.
Yeah, I'm going to give you credit for trying something new at least. But for the most part, yeah, like you're looking for the horror. It's like you're looking for, what is it, that feeling that I'm supposed to get. And if you didn't get it, then yeah, fundamentally off the bat, that just makes it not a movie you enjoyed. I like how a lot of them leave the endings for you to make up your own mind. I think I agree with Josh. I don't mind You know,
Oh.
as long as it looks like this
Never said that.
as long as it looks like this is where we were supposed to get. Because if I'm left
That's what I said.
confused, if I'm left confused, but I'm not supposed to be, then you messed up. But if I know for a fact that this is what I'm supposed to be feeling, yeah, I'm okay with that, and I don't mind the debate too, because then you get to argue about what you think was real and what you think was in the character's head, or part of that world.
Which is why I brought up Shutter Island, and if anything, you can take Psycho to that point. If you write it well, you can still leave the viewer at the same conclusion at the end of ambiguity of what actually was going on. There's a difference between that or just lazily, and I mean, Amelia is right. Jane Doe did do this a few times, just lazily throwing things in there that arguably was not the viewer is unable to get to those points on their own without these lazy things slapped into the plot. There's a difference if someone's writing you towards that direction, where if you read it, different perceptions, regardless of your background, you're going to come, or point of views, you may come into different sort of understandings of how the plot concludes. That's different versus just throwing things in there to throw you off guard and say, oh yeah, no, it's this now, it's this. I mean, at that point, frankly, at the end of the night house, if they threw in a Cloverfield monster, it would have made just as much sense. And that's really not a good thing for your plot if you weren't leading towards that.
Words that have never been spoken on this show. Rashawn, tell me how you really feel. Like that is just,
how many
that
times does a
never been
kaiju
said.
hurt?
Right?
Throw in a kaiju, see what happens.
Hey,
I mean, why not? Look, if we're gonna talk about level of like horror and being scared and things like that, frankly, I think like the lowest bar is if you're not scaring me more than Leviathan or Deep Star 6 coming out in the late 80s and early 90s, then, you might as well entertain me with some good plot. But that's the thing, right? Like, where are we saying scaring us? Are we just going to be like, ooh, I have to think about something hard? Or is it like, oh shit, I did not see that coming. I do not want to go into this room because it's dark. I mean, we have to also be honest about what is scaring us and what is frightening.
I think we can do both.
I'm not saying we can't. My point is we have to be honest about it, because more often than not, I feel like, especially in these quote unquote new horror movies, we're really convincing ourselves that we had those feelings instead of actually feeling those things genuinely when we're watching it.
Well, that is it all a grand illusion? That brings us kind of right back to where we started. But I have had a blast. I've been loving talking this subject with you, and as always, hearing your insights. Amelia, we absolutely always love having you on here. You know that we
always love being on here.
Yeah, we know you're about to get kind of busy, but
I'm about to get a little busy, but I'm recording a lot less. So my podcast life is wide open. So I can come back as much as you guys want.
What?
All right.
There might just be a little baby, like.
That's fine.
Okay.
Don't play around, Amelia. We'll take you up on that.
We can absolutely take you up on that. So it's a good thing. But do you have any pluggables you want to plug in that regard? Talk about the work, some of the work you've done, or not so much?
Sure. So I produced the first season of Lost Souls of America. I've taken a step back, but Jamie is now taking over the reins herself, and she will be coming back in a few months. As for Ghost Hunting in New England, we're on a little bit of a hiatus right now. I'm hoping to come back in a big way in January. We'll kind of see what motherhood does to that. But I'm hoping maybe a YouTube could be involved, start something with that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And that's it. Oh, I'll be on, I'm recording with a new group, Ohio Family on the Run.
Oh,
so probably about the time this comes out, their episode with me will come out, or maybe a couple weeks later, but they're nice people. So if you like,
what's the subject matter?
Ghosts. Spooky
Ghosts. All right. Awesome. Well, I just put out there, especially if you want to get us on YouTube, that, the Steam Gentlemen will show up in their Ghostbusters costumes, ready to roll and ready to do an investigation. I will bring my EMF. I'll bring my sage and my salt. I know, maybe a little iron that that's pulling from Supernatural, but no, all of us.
No, that works. You got it. You got the big three.
100, yeah, but hey, I know fool. I don't play around with Ouija boards. No, of course I did as a kid.
I'm gonna get my own lawyer.
But now, if you ever want to have the Steam Gentlemen do a ghost investigation, you just shout out.
Hell yeah!
We will all come sliding down that fire pole and jump in Ecto 1. That stuff's gonna happen. I'm just saying.
Yay!
She's with it,
fantastic.
And we will not cross.
So we are
the
so glad. We are so glad, absolutely, to be here in spooky season and to have Amelia back with us. When we're plugging our pluggables, don't forget, head on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes, rate and review us, give it, help us push that algorithm a little bit. You can follow us on Facebook. It is Steam Gentlemen. You can follow us on Instagram. Do even Steam Bro. And I don't know, do your own research. Okay, damn it, do your own research when it comes to Instagram and TikTok, or TikTok and Twitter. Soon to be Elon Muskville. I sold my electric car company, and all I got was this Twitter thing. So
talking about hustling backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, that was the wrong idea. But as we're taking us out, Amelia, how you feeling? Going in here, we got, how's the week gonna treat you? What's your final thoughts for the day?
Just my week in general, or about this stuff? Oh,
he does this all the time.
We leave. That's generally how we leave. This is my thing. I want to check in with people as they go.
He's making us soothsayers.
Okay, yeah. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about my week. It's hopefully going to be my last week at work. Knock on wood, nothing else happens there, and I'm feeling good about that. So there you go.
All right, I'll wait. I'll try and wait till whatever time it is you come back. My youngest, Gabe, who also scored the first goal of the game today. I'm real proud of him, as you can tell. But asked me what a crepe was, and I told him I would go bring him by your place to
something them really thin pancakes.
To really exactly, little to get some of that Nutella banana.
Come on by.
Yeah. So we'll definitely. I had no other place that I was going to take him. Gregory, how you doing over there, man? How's the rest of the week looking for you? All that good stuff. Weekend, all the holiday pumpkin spice latte funness going on.
It's going to get better because you were just talking about Nutella, and for all of our listeners out there, the marijuana infused Nutella.
Oh my God!
Yo, kids, just buy it.
No,
just buy it.
No, we're not doing that.
Like, just buy it. Put it quite literally on everything.
TSG does not stand by that statement.
Or you know what? Just forget whatever you were gonna put it on and just heave it into your mouth. It's amazing. So
go to commercial.
My week's gonna get great because this place is having a sale, and Josh just reminded me that it exists. So thank you, Josh. Appreciate that.
I appreciate that my conversation on New Horror brought you back to Nutella infused with
it is
weed.
Amazing.
That's pretty
absolutely amazing.
I just want to make the legal note that we do not promote giving THC infused Nutella to children.
No.
Who suggested
I don't
that?
like children that much. I just don't.
Who suggested that?
Neither is Tom Brady, but that doesn't mean we're out here trying to push THC to the children.
Right?
Like True Daddy, we love the kids.
First of all, that kid ain't getting my fucking Nutella. It's not gonna happen.
No way.
It's not gonna happen.
That's what I keep going back to. I got two kids, but they ain't getting that. Hell no. Get out of here.
Hell no. Go get some fucking Cheez-Its. Fuck out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. That's exactly right. Well, Rashad, I assume that doesn't. Well, I don't know if that brand of Nutella is on your list for the week, or what do you got going on over there?
Well, no, but following the theme, now I'm thinking of Cheez-Its and how I woke up being the cheesiest. And I just want to give this public service announcement to the children out there that there is nothing NEW about NU horror. It is just packaged a lot different for hipsters like Birdman to walk around and say, "Oh, it made you think." but then we in another episode talk about Psycho and how it made us think. So I'm not sure what the difference is, other than the fact that I don't know, maybe some of these movies are just better than others.
Maybe it's just because I'm over here streaming rich, as you said. I got too many streaming services going. And
you are just a streaming embarrassment, man. I mean, there are children starving out there, and you're like, yeah, but what about this documentary ain't gonna watch itself?
That's all I'm saying. I gotta find out what happened to that vegan restaurant owner who got taken for like $12 bajillion. You're damn right. I gotta find out what's going on here.
I think our listeners need to understand, despite all the viewing habits of our Mr. Streaming Rich Birdman, Joshua Fink, he is a phenomenal father who spends every waking moment he can with his kids. It is absolutely endearing, and it's lovely to see. What up, Cat?
You're being very nice to me, but I'm
holding my cat.
If I get that weed infused Nutella, they are not fucking getting it. That's all I can tell you right now. I love my kids, but I don't love them that much.
You love your life. Twilight will kill you.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there is that too. I do have to people, it doesn't take away your sense of self-preservation. That's all I'm saying. All right. Well, fantastic, guys. It has been great to get back together and get the full band back together. All elements going, from the Hammond organ on down. I appreciate you tuning in this week. This is Josh, the Birdman, telling you to keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on.